All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, the Bad Luck Gamer, with my co-host Glue Boy.
Hello, hello.
And today we have an interesting topic, mostly because I'm tired from being a dad, and Alex wants to rant about stuff, and so we're gonna talk about terrible advice given on and offline to players, and what defines bad advice in tabletop. I think it's something that's actually an interesting topic, so we'll get to that. But before we do, we'll let some people hop into the chat here, and we'll just have a little bit of small talk. So Alex, what's been up with you since the holidays?
Man, it's been a mix of things. On one hand, I hurt my back over Thanksgiving. It sucks. I hate not being able to move properly or like sit properly. It sucks. But on the other hand, man, I should have gotten to the Dresden Files way sooner. I really fuck with this.
I like the Dresden Files. I haven't even read them, read them that much. I watched the TV series for a little bit.
I've heard the TV series is okay. Yeah. Like, I haven't heard anything crazy about it, but like,
it didn't last long. It was like 3 seasons or something like that.
I have to see what books I'm on like halfway through book 2. But it is one of those series where I'm just like, oh man, this has a lot more of just my sense of appeal. And from what I'm told, the first 2 books are the worst. And so it's like, oh, okay, I'm liking book 1 and 2. So what, it's just going to go up from here? I love hearing that. The literal worst part I would talk about it is like the audiobooks are not great if you don't like mouth noises. Just like, the editing sucks for them. I know a different publisher takes over and then it gets better, but like there's that element of, oh, there's some charm here to hearing like Harry Dresden breathe in, breathe out, smack his lips. It makes him seem a lot more of a like kind of what he feels like, an emotionally exhausted wizard. And you get some of that, but also I feel like I'm hearing the story from the inside of the man's mouth. That's not preferable. And like, it is one of those settings too where I love it. I love the Sanderson approach of have everything with really strong rules and everything is explained. And like, I think the Dresden Files has a fun balance of magic is something that's mysterious, kind of nebulous with everything you can do about it, but it's studied because wizards are academic, and everything has rules, but it still feels like there's a lot of mysteries in the world and in the setting, which has like phenomenal world building. I really like how it's just offhandedly building so much character to the setting it's in.
That's good. I definitely want to check it out as well. I've been hooked. I got actually hooked on a new book series.
Ooh.
It's called Cradle by Will White.
I feel like I've heard that.
It is a very highly rated like cultivation, Western cultivation power progression story, and I would say it's like it's decent. I wouldn't say like it's some of the best I've heard, but at the same time, I'm on book 8. Yes, I'm on book 8, and I started reading it like last week. So
damn. I mean, I imagine like, yeah, I just looked up a picture of it. There's like a lot of books. Is it just like they're not that long too?
They're not that long. The audiobooks, most of them aren't more than 10 hours.
Yeah, I would do more. Like crush through Dresden Files way faster if like I didn't have a lot of moments at work where I couldn't listen to something, or I'm at home and I'm doing something that like I need my full focus on. Because on the other hand, alternatively, I started playing After's Dispatch, and like the hole in my heart of that, I'm like, I should try out The Wolf Among Us, because I keep hearing everyone say that this is like the best Telltale game, and it's a crime there's not a season 2. I've played the first chapter so far, and I fucking get it. I really understand why people rave about this game. It is incredibly rare for me to like approach a thing that everyone is saying, hey, it's great, this is so good, and then I walk away from it being like, okay, I get it, they're completely right. Like, the hype is totally fair. And I find it really funny that 2 of like my favorite things I've encountered in the past couple weeks is just Two fantastic like showcases of how to do Secret World really well. Because both of them hit the Secret World vibe and have it explained so well, like why this, like everything is so in the dark and secret, and build on the concept of integrating a lot of fantasy, fairy tale, like myth stuff into like a real world setting.
Yeah.
I understand way more after reading Dresden Files too, like why I get so many comments about it, because that's part of the reason. I get a lot of comments about like Mage the Ascension, like specifically people like, oh wait a second, this is just Harry Dresden. And I'm like, oh, I should check it out. Yep, they're completely right. And I have two coworkers at my new job who both told me I should read it. And I was like, okay, I guess I will.
Yeah, the Dresden Files are like kind of it's funny because most people don't really know about it, but it's kind of one of the peak like urban magic or urban wizardry stories that people know of, and yet no one reads the Dresden Files. You know, everyone's more obsessed with like more medieval or high fantasy kind of magic stuff, but the Dresden Files is peak like Constantine urban magic, and I like that kind of stuff. It's something that I wish more TTRPGs did better, is a good urban fantasy.
Yeah, like the part I really appreciate about it, like so much that I had to talk about it in our I like that our Tuesday game Discord that we use has also turned into a book like just review thing. I love it. I'm a big fan of that. But it's so fascinating because I think there's a really key thing you can include in your urban fantasy that is like, you can have your world be a secret world without having it be like an oppressive, the moment you cast a spell, the moment a thing happens, this secret group will come down and crack it closed. Like, no, I like the fact that in Dresden Files, it's kind of open of like, there's a lot of elements here where I don't think they're trying to hide themselves. It's just the fact that there's not many. It's really rare. Dresden is saying, like, in the entire city of Chicago, he is like the wizard. And then when another wizard comes up, he's like, oh shit, okay. He's probably not as cool as me. Then there's a lot of people with very minor magic, but the thing is like, there's through a lot of different perspectives on having magic, often makes people just not want to talk about it or use it. Or the fact that, like, societally, it's really uncomfortable to go out there and be like, hey guys, you know how we've like for hundreds of years have built off of we can explain everything and scientific method, and then be like, oh yeah, also there's this entire league of things we can't explain. Like, we don't know how it works, we don't know what's up, it can kind of just do whatever. That's a worrying thought for people. Like, the Wizard Council isn't cracking down on making sure wizardry is like hidden fully, it's cracking down to make sure no one uses it illegally. And I think that's a really good distinction to make.
Yeah, it's the hard part about magic in general, and this is something that you run into in like games like Anima, for instance, that when it comes to like a TTRPG especially, the players are always special, but that means that the players never get a proper appreciation for how rare anything is supposed to be. So,
yeah,
in Anima, for instance, only 1 in 10,000 people are supposed to be like a wizard. Have the gift.
Yeah, it is an inherently rare thing.
So, like, in 10,000 people is not a lot of people either. It might even be 100,000. I actually don't remember. I think it's 1 in 10,000 as it's written in the book.
I mean, it would make sense because, like, it depends what the population of Gaia is. But it would make some sense, like, all right, there's like at least a few hundred, because a few hundred to like a few million or billion, I think is like, I think it's a good ratio.
Well, I mean, so if it's 1 in 10,000, then out of 1 million people, you have 100 wizards. So
yeah,
and it's like medieval fantasy, so there's not that many people. It's rare to find a city that has 1 million people because it's just people. Yeah. There's just not that many people.
It's like, that's an acceptable number to have. You know, like you can have like a guild, maybe like a group of mages get together. It's not every mage, but it's still like a nice grouping. like it makes sense.
And it becomes doubly so for like unique ancestries in things like Pathfinder, where it's like the rare ancestries are supposed to be, you don't typically see these ancestries outside of their homeland, you know?
Yeah.
Or you have like the automaton, which there's just like not many automatons at all, but in almost every game of Pathfinder I've played, someone has been an automaton or automaton adjacent. So it's one of the hard things that I wish it's not that I wish tabletop did it better. I just wish there was some way to better convey the uniqueness of such things for the players to better enjoy them. Because I feel like if you're a Cosmere head and you're playing a game of Stormlight Archive, and someone's playing a Shin individual, that most people at the table who, if they've all read the books and everything, would appreciate how rare Shin people are outside of Shin Aurora.
Yeah.
And it's something that has that uniqueness to it, and there's these aspects to it that, like, if you were really into the setting and everything like that, it would be a very fun experience to have of like, okay, how does a Shin individual work in like Alethkar, which is like the exact opposite culturally, where in Alethi culture, war and being good at battle is something to be admired, and in Shin culture, that's like super taboo.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Peter, for the sub. We appreciate you. So it's something that I don't know. I even mentioned it for our first anima campaign, where I'm like, okay, if anyone wants to play magic or any other race, they need to roll an above an 80 on a D100, essentially a 20% chance, which is still absurdly high, but
it's at least something. Because and like in the one shot we got, I'm playing a mage. I went warlock with the gift and all that. I've built a fun gun wizard in that, like, I'm using creation magic and fire magic, because creation is fun.
Creation is my favorite magic. Yeah,
it's a sick like path, and then fire, and then I also have gestureless casting, so then I'm not fucked up by holding a gun and using magic, because I'd love the idea of quick, let me heal you, and then I magically imbue my gun and I shoot you. Or like, let me deal damage and I enhance my gun and shoot somebody. I think that'd be a very fun vibe. And also, it's me learning the magic, and by learning the magic, I mean I messaged Q on how to make a magic character, because I was reading it and I'm like, this is a lot of words. And then he explained, he's like, hey, by the way, here's how you can break it and get like max magic at level 1. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that, but thank you for telling me.
I was about to say, don't ask you. He's not gonna help you make a good wizard. He's gonna make you a broken wizard.
No, I reined it in. I was specifically saying I'm not going that far, but there is a lot of information he gave me where I'm like, okay, this makes more sense, because it is just so dense on like how to do it. And then my simple question of like, okay, then how many spells do I get? It's like, okay, it's based on spell level, and like, do I have to buy a path? Like, there's a lot of answers that the book I don't feel like tells you that well.
The book tells you pretty well, actually.
I was reading it and I was like, I don't fucking get it. I'm just gonna tell him and like ask, and then basically was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. How much DP is it? And he's like, there you go. Here's the exact number. I'm like, thank you. That's all I needed. Someone to tell me what to do, and then I'll play with magic, and I'll probably determine I'm not a fan of it.
I don't know. There's not really a significant difference between it and key stuff, other than that they don't operate on the same kind of like scales. Because key 1, I mean, there's a ton of like pre-made techniques, but the system really wants you to make your own techniques. You know, it's kind of like
it is very fun to make your own techniques. Like,
yeah.
That's why I'm so hyped to play a technician in this campaign, especially a long one. So I feel like I can really have a lot of fun in making very flavorful abilities, and like I think it'll be super cool to invest
in. But the magic, like they both have accumulations. It's just they don't. Magic's not divided. There's just one magic accumulation versus all the different accumulations. And you don't make your own spells. You just cast what spells you have on your path or paths.
And then like the free access spells, right? I just get those.
So when you look at a path, it'll say every so many spell levels, it'll say like one free 1 to 10 free access spell, 1 to 20 free access spell. It says when you're looking in the section. Gotcha. Some paths have more free access spells, like a lot of the base elemental ones like fire, you actually get twice as many, but there's just not as many fire spells essentially. And when you get free access spells, and in fact you can invest those instead in subpaths, which was introduced in another book. So
yeah, because I'm not doing subpaths. I'm just like, all I have is I got creation and fire to level 50. That's it. Because I looked past it and I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to like min-max my spell level. Like I'll make it so I accumulate 30 Xeon every turn. Because like magic accumulation, I want that to be decent. But
yeah, you want your magic accumulation to be, if you're level 3, you could probably get it up to 60, no problem.
Probably.
40 is not bad. But the biggest thing is like if you want to cast a spell every round, 40 is like the minimum.
Yeah.
60 is better, and even then there's gonna be some spells you're not gonna be able to cast with. But the thing with magic is that its attack and defense stat is the same. So
I made it so I didn't have to. I was just like, it sounds fun, so I have the one where I use my attack and my defense as projection.
Yeah, which is a fine way to do it if you're going to warlock. Yeah. But if you're going just straight magic, like all you need to do is just get like 100 and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. Like the way I am flavoring it is that I am a gun wizard. So it is my attack stat and my projection are similar because I'm shooting guns.
But yeah, you know, and it's just using whatever spells. Granted, the spells don't scale in the core book, at least the English core book, the spells don't scale the way they are written in the book. You gotta look at the Spanish book for that, because they've changed how they balanced it. So rather than getting an extra effect for every 10 Xeon extra you spend on a spell, you need to spend so much extra Xeon and you need to have a certain intelligence requirement. They have it in the Supernatural book for the subpaths, and then the core book has it as well. It's not really a big deal, especially if you're playing a level 3 character, because you're not going to be upcasting too much. But
yeah, it's a thing of like, there's a lot of elements to magic that I am seeing and I realize would be important, but I'm like, this is a one shot, like probably at most 2 sessions. So I don't need to go too crazy in like super high magic recovery or any of this. Like my thought here is that like I'm probably gonna be the only person doing magic in this one shot.
Oh no, I think Booter mentioned trying magic as well.
It'd be fun. Like I think it is a good thing, especially for the newer players, to show like, hey, here's how the magic system works. Especially to like any audience watching, and it is the one system I have like the least experience with. So I want to try it out before I go back to my beloved key.
Yeah. I love the magic, but that's because I also like utility stuff, and
it makes it so easy to have utility stuff. That's an element I do enjoy. I enjoy the fact that I'm not like, I get 5 spells at this level. So like I can just have things that are really nice in utility.
Well, like Creation has a spell I love. It's called Create Homunculus. and you just make a level 0 creature that just
Like a little guy.
does whatever you want. Actually, you can make like, it's absurd because even in the like adjusted version, the first upcast makes 5 homunculus with one use of the spell,
Which is fun.
and you get to make a level 0 character. It's just 400 development points you get to do to make a little guy who can't be that strong, but there's a lot of very fun ways you can make a little dude who can do some really fun things.
Just like some other elements like inorganic modification, minor change, imitate, the really cool support spells of like adding a damage barrier to an ally or like to yourself, add it, like able to heal 50 life points. Recover, just being like, granted it costs 150 Xeon fairly, but like there's just a lot of elements there where I feel creation is very cool and you can do a lot of fun stuff with it.
Yeah, and a lot of paths are really interesting. The sub paths they've introduced, like the knowledge subpath, can just give you 120 and like 5 different skills, which is crazy.
It is nuts. Like, I'm purposefully limiting myself because I know I could go harder, and like I don't want to take the time for a character I'm gonna play like twice total.
That's fair.
Where I'm like, I'm not gonna go as hard into meta magic, but I see you, meta magic system. I see how insane you can get. Like,
I have made some adjustments to meta magic. A lot of the things Q told you that's probably how to break the game I've removed, so
good. Because like I didn't do them. I didn't do any of that, but I liked hearing how exactly I could. And then I read over the meta magic myself, and I'm like, yeah, this is a problem.
Yeah, automatic projection is bad. It's just, all it does is you don't have to have projection as a wizard. You can get 180 as long as you invest enough Xeon into it, and you can buy 5 points of Xeon per development point. So 100 development points is 500 Xeon. It's really not difficult to just make a character who has no projection and yet has better projection than someone who actually invests in the stat. So it's just magic is one of the reasons why anima could just not work at some tables, because it is pretty easy to break. Granted, Key can do some pretty dumb stuff too, but
easily. Like I have like made a lot of very problematic but very theoretical abilities where I'm like, oh, I could do this and like for this much it'd be super easy. I'm not going to, but I could. Like I've talked about, like I've made I've like sussed out how easy it would be to make a carpet bomb ability. Like it directly gives you a carpet bomb modification to like just completely strike a line forward for miles. It's not hard. I feel like it's
really
unnecessary.
A big problem though. I mean, in world maybe, but like in a battle, it's not really that big a deal.
Oh yeah, no. Like there's situations where I think it could be a problem, and like if for whatever reason you were running a giant pitched combat, like we're protecting the siege gates, and then you're like, all right, one sec, bam, and then you just explode a giant line of people. There's ways you can use a lot of the key abilities to trivialize everything incredibly easily.
I don't even know about that, honestly. Like the limited attack and limited defense were kind of some of the worst ones, just because of how the combat generally works.
Stacking the penalties is rough.
Yeah, it's just like the massive ability to do multi-tech, but since those are removed, they're now so expensive that you just can't do it to the same effects that you could before. So
yeah,
I don't know. I'd have to see. Like that one fix may have just fixed everything, if I'm gonna be honest, for Key.
I hope so, because I'm gonna be making some like fun abilities, and if I like start getting a little, if one of the powers is like way too busted, you can use it as an example to like fix, because my plan for a lot of my stuff for my upcoming character is to have a bunch of fun ongoing key effects. Like I give myself a buff. The 3 I already know is I am going to make an ability that increases like knockback and strength and just pushes people gravitationally. I'm gonna have one that's definitely like solar, like heat based damage, and then I'm gonna have one that is I'm gonna have an automatic dodge thing where I get a big cool dodge buff and maybe some automatic movement, and then a stealth ability where I just increase my stealth like a stupid amount, and then maybe make myself invisible if I can find a way to do that. Because I think it'd be fun. The character is explicitly are like totally down for crime for his research, so the idea of him like breaking into a university is like that's a fun way to do it.
I don't think you can be invisible.
I was expecting not, but
the closest invisibility thing you can get is camouflage, but that's just a attack modifier. So
yeah, then at most his stealth and hide would be like boosted pretty high.
Yeah, I mean you can do it like that and kind of bust things that way.
But yeah, the main framing is that like he's modifying his like area around him, and making it so light is reflecting just strangely, and so it's harder to get like a read of him. Because the dodge one I have already flavored is what he is doing is he is staggering the light reaching your eyes, and so like you get a punch and then a second later or something, or a half second later, you see his fist connect. Like it's fucking with your brain really bad because he's like changing how the light is working for him. Because he understands the physics of how light works. I like the key ability because it hits an element I really enjoy in Magic systems of magic based on like your imagination, and like not just full imagination, but like your actual physical knowledge of a subject. And so the big kicker for him is like, if I have a power, he needs to be able to explain why it works through like physics and like astrophysics. And if he can explain how it works, therefore I think it's viable and like fun for me to pick. And that's how I enjoy approaching like a character like this.
And it's fun too because I've been reading a cultivation story, power fantasy thing, and I have a lot of I've been coming up with a lot of fun ideas for stuff you guys can do, and I've been coming up with some fun paths for some character progression that's outside of leveling that you guys can follow.
Hell yeah.
So I really, in this game, I really want you guys to earn your power more than anything, and so it might mean I have to be stingier with XP, but I don't want it to be unfun, so I'm coming up with a lot of ways where your characters can progress in more than one avenue, and when you guys are doing difficult stuff, you're gonna get XP and stuff like that, and when it's not so difficult, you're not going to get as much XP, but hopefully you guys take that as an opportunity to start looking for other ways you can get, power and stuff like that. So
yeah,
we'll see. But speaking on that, we kind of went a little bit over. Let's talk about some bad advice, Alex.
Yeah, because man, oh man, I have been on a consistent basis pissed off by tabletop fans. Just annoyed consistently. But the one that really gets me more and more is I genuinely cannot stand how the online ecosystem of tabletop advice operates. Because I feel like nobody is looking at the problem like a person. They're looking at it as a event occurring in a game. As like the DM describes a room, and then you're in the room figuring out how to solve it, how to approach it, instead of what I think is really important in learning how to take a step back and looking at like the table that you're sitting at, be it virtual or real life, and like look at it from that perspective and how to solve your problems. I have two examples of this. I could like find the TikToks that like help promote this. But I can just basically explain it. The one that was very recent was it was a little animated skit of like there's like three characters, the rogue, like the fighter, and then the cleric. And then the rogue is like, I don't trust you guys. My character doesn't trust you guys yet, so I'm just going to leave. And like a DM character is there saying, well, if you want to, then you can leave in real life. Because if you're gonna like show up and not play the game, then you can leave. And I was like, fair enough. I agree with that. Because that's an archetype of character that's really fucking annoying. And then I look in the comments and everyone is just like unironically advocating for the character perspective of but no, like he's role playing. The character doesn't trust you guys. The character doesn't do this. And I'm going insane because it's just like, no, that's rude behavior. That is rude tabletop behavior.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even like hey, we're playing a social contract game. You got to ask yourself, okay, what what do you think is going to happen when you do this with your character? Like, you're gonna go off, start doing your own thing, start having your own adventure, you know? Like, I I think a character can be like, I'm gonna I'll even go do my own thing, and then can work the story where they come back in, see things from the outside, stalk the party, do all kinds of stuff, and you can make it work. The hard part is more of like the apathetic character. Like, I don't care about this. I don't care about this town. Why am I going to defend it? And just like the point of the story is you guys are defending this town against bandits, and that's how we're starting this campaign. So if your character doesn't care and you're just going to wait for the bandit attack so they can start looting the buildings, you're not participating in the story. If anything, you're just playing an NPC thief, and
Yeah.
and you're actively not participating. But I can see a story where a character is like, okay, I don't trust them. I'm gonna go off. But I'm gonna keep an eye on them. You know, I'm gonna do this or that or whatever, and you know, play that kind of archetype. I think it's better when everyone's kind of playing on the same page. Everyone's like playing with the intent of getting along. But you can tell an interesting story that way.
You can. And like I think it is a thing where you can do that. The difference and where I think it becomes rude is if you were trying to do that to a DM that was like actively not able to immediately run with it or like not prepared for it, and like you basically hit them with a hey, like say this is a GM who needs to do a lot of prep time and like writes everything out beforehand, and then you're just like, hey GM, I know you spent a long time doing this, but let me do this thing, and then they're struggling. If it's a GM who's worked good in improv and like you have a table that you can trust, I think like yeah, in that case it can work really well. I also say this from the perspective of I have played a decent number of characters who like don't like the party at first, or like don't trust them, or have a very stilted view on how they're viewing them, and the part of their arc was like becoming more comfortable with this party. I mean, Sebastian is a great example of this. I think like me playing Sebastian, there was a with how the character is set up, you could really easily have that exact same scenario of him just being like, "All right, I'm done with you guys. See ya," like leave. But no, I signed up to play a long game with my friends, so the character is going to participate in the game. Uh, I had things going on in the background where like I had notes on how to manipulate each one of the party members because it was more fun in character, and uh, a part of Sebastian's arc was him learning that like he's weird for doing that. Like that is strange behavior. Not everyone is doing that to you. Um, and like that was my element. I was reading through those comments, and like it was a lot of comments, and it wasn't just like the TikTok rage bait. There were people like legitimately arguing for this, where their point was that it's a failing on the GM to not captivate your character and convince them to stay along.
That's such bad advice. Yeah,
it is.
That's a bad one. The GM didn't tell a story good enough to make your character trust the other party members.
Especially at like session 1, and then also weird. Blame is also put on the players for not like working hard enough to get this person to stay. And then the fix I saw a decent number of people talking about was, well, yeah, then like now the story is to go and convince this one player to take part in the game. No, that's what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah,
you need to have a serious conversation at the table of like, you showed up with a character that is not like they're not going to participate. Like you're showing up with a character that doesn't want to play the game. We all said we wanted to play. I think a lot of times if this pops up, I think there's players who do this and they don't realize it's rude, or they don't realize like what they're doing, which is why you need to have those out of game talks and be like, hey, this is what you're doing. Like, is this what you're intending? What do you want to happen out of this? I think is a very important talk for people to get more often.
Yeah, I mean, this problem bumps up against a major player issue that comes up, which is, newsflash, most people who play TTRPGs are not good storytellers right out. They aren't, they couldn't write a book even if their life depended on it. And so what they do is they try to imitate or mimic like a character or character archetype that they've seen in other media, or they just have an idea of a character, and everyone's like, I know how to play a character, or I know what a character does in the story. I'm gonna do what the character would do in the story. Which one, cool, but you have to remember, this is a group narrative. You don't have the freedom that a book writer does of being able to dictate what happens in the story. So you can't make it work. You have to rely on everyone else to help you make it work. So you have to inherently tell the story cooperatively with the idea of cooperation. And two, a lot of people are like, I'm going to play Dante from Devil May Cry. And they're going to do their best to try to play Dante. But the problem is they lack the charisma. They lack the ability to like play Dante as Dante. And they may even fundamentally misunderstand what Dante is at his core. And they just want to go and do cool devil, slayer shit. And go and do flips and do cool combat stuff. And it's just like, Dante's not cool because of how good he is in combat. Dante's really cool because he knows how to make combat fun. And also he's just kind of an interesting character to watch. That's what makes Dante.
Yeah, he's just fun, and like the most that it comes to when it's him being he's really good at combat is that, like, for a lot of very basic combats, basically everything but final boss really, he's in that situation of like Canon Dante is having such an easy time with everything that he has the time and ability to style on you. But like there's also a lot of elements for Dante. He takes the plot seriously. Like because there's the misconception that he's like jokey 24/7. He is snarky and like cocky at all times, but he's like taking the threat seriously, like every single time. The exact way he's taking it seriously is like changes based on like which game he's in. But
yeah,
that's an element. Exactly my point. Dante is a character with a personality that like you could really easily lean into and make a not very active character, except for combat. But Dante as a character in his personality gives a shit about the game he is in. That is like the kicker. It's making something that like cares and wants to participate.
Hey, Bob. And that also goes with the stoic character archetype. They want to play the brooding guy in the background who just sits and stares and is intimidating and stuff like that. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I love this character archetype, I want to play it. But they don't realize that these characters work most often in the media that they exist because some outside source or some other character is what's drawing them into the story and making them participate and making them do things.
Yeah.
Guts
on the other hand, like,
wouldn't
there's
be
a lot of
as good if it wasn't for like Pick and some of the other supporting cast.
Yeah, like, well, the big one too with like Puck is like the
Puck,
point
though, yeah.
early on for Puck is that it is Guts at his like least interested in the plot, except for I must kill like the big demons, I must kill like the heralds and all that. Puck is the one pulling him into like caring about the little things more.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, his entire character arc is going from like a weapon on the battlefield to then someone who has friends and like can trust again, and then it breaks and he has to rebuild that from even further below. And he's forging it, and there's a part, I love it, you can tell at the panel that the character arc is like really hitting, where he's finally like for once kind of more peaceful. He's not like angry. He's not just upset. He's staring off like wistfully at like a sunset, and it's really good. And like that's when he has the entire party of supporting cast with him. Another element I'll say too is that one of the elements that also makes it harder to play that character type is in media, we have many different ways of showcasing what the quiet character is thinking and feeling, much more than like a typical tabletop player can demonstrate.
Yeah.
Where you want to have the character that's like quiet, and then it turns into like, well, my character doesn't feel like they're active or like participating at all. How do I do this? A big one is just because it's the nature of tabletop games. We don't have like their inner monologue, and like we're not seeing and being described their I guess what they're doing and saying as much. But it is just that element. You got to make something to participate, and I argued with someone because they were saying like, well, that is participation. Participating is like leaving, and the argument turned super pedantic. Like the point of, well, the word leaving here implies this. Like, no, it doesn't. Like, we're human beings. You can understand what we're talking about. That's not just hyper literal, the exact transcription of the video you watched. But like, there's another example that I think hits this harder of like what my issue is of there was a TikTok of a video that is a like D&D, am I the asshole? And it was a GM saying like, yeah, basically. It was a GM talking about a player that he's like, they're not being bad. But like, how do I solve this problem? And like, they have a party. It's set out. There's a lot of people's like new or first experience playing D&D at this table, and one of them is playing a pacifist. And like, sure, you can make that work, but the problem is the character is like healing enemies, like using their spells to do that, and making sure no one dies. And they're asking, how do I solve this? And like, the person reading it is just telling the story of it. And the comments are all like, well, make combat harder. And like, do this. Well, that means the character is going to get killed in this way. And it's all like in-game punishment. Like, all of it. And then like, looking through, like a lot of this, just like, oh, you need to like convince them to fight. You need to convince them to do this. And then to where I broke there again too. Of like, I don't like how many of these answers are in-game solutions. The actual answer is just to chat with the player. Like, hey man, this is a game we're all trying to play. You got to play something that will fully participate with the game. Let's come up with something. And then the only person who replied to that, I had multiple other replies, but the only one that replied, I think getting it, was a person saying, if the other players were into it, I'd personally love to play through a campaign where you talk the sentient enemies down or put them in jail instead. Having the BBEG realize that they nearly died and should give up could be a really rewarding end goal. And then I'm like, yes, that is a really good reason why an out-of-game chat is so important. Because you never learn that if you only handle it in-game. Then more people are like, this is a role-playing game, you can't like limit how people play. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you gotta play something that wants to play the game.
And that's actually absolutely false. You should limit how people play the game. One of the core elements of tabletop is immersion, or at least it should be. Not everyone plays the same, obviously, but like, you're telling a narrative, and the more immersive qualities it has, the better it's going to be for everyone. It's going to be more memorable. If your players are going around and just murder hoboing everything, going and threatening shopkeepers to get as much out of them as they can, or killing shopkeepers and just looting their store, that doesn't make the game more fun if they can't be punished for doing so. And you can't create rewarding elements in the story or a narrative if the players are just going to behave like animals. Yeah. So, there has to be some social limitations, because if you just want to play a game where your players just, and to be fair, there's people who are like that. There's people who just want to sandbox your TTRPG and just do wild shit because you can't do that anywhere else, and they find that super fun. But what happens is it's not sustainable gameplay. You can't keep doing that because it ends up breaking something down the line, the world or the balance or whatever, or
even more abstractly, eventually you get bored.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not like committed to anything with the game, and like it's just let's go all right, next week let's like fuck around for a few hours. Like that's fun for a bit. I'd say like I'd have fun with that for a bit. The thing that pulls me back is if the me doing that and fucking around the sandbox builds like stories and like arcs and stuff. Like that to me is more appealing than just I got in that other aspect. It's just like, all right, are we having like an improv romp like with rules attached? Like that sounds fun. I'd prefer like a real structured like campaign story, but like sure, that could be fun. But it's just I agree though. I don't think it's sustainable like for a very long time. I think you could have a really fun like 15 sessions out of that.
I don't think it's 15 sessions. I mean, like if there's no repercussions, you know, players can just keep stealing stuff, keep getting broken, using that to get even bigger stuff and to steal even bigger things. After the third session, it's just like, all right, there's no resistance here. What is this village gonna do to us anyway?
Yeah, like it's the part where I've seen like there's all the other online bits of my players are murder hobos. Like I've spent session after session throwing the bigger, scarier things at them, and it's not curbing their behavior. What do I do? Talk to them. Talk about, hey man, I'm making a game and like a story thing here, and you guys are kind of just shitting on it. Like I understand this is fun, but there's some elements where like I'm a human being trying to do this thing. Is this what you guys want? What do you want me to do? I think you got to have that conversation. You got to sometimes you have to be an adult and you have to talk to another human being like an adult and express your feelings and express like what are you intending? Because you can have a lot of solve so many problems by when it's popping up and when it's becoming an issue, just talking.
Yeah, to be fair, that implies a social a social capability that like just a lot of groups just don't have. Like,
oh yeah,
it's easier than I think some people understand when you say just talk about it. We've been to Adventures League. You know, there's people who you could talk to them about it and that won't fix their behavior because they're just not capable of like understanding what they're doing is wrong, or vice versa. Your little fun home group, everyone there is just a small, you know, inept little human being trying to do this cooperative storytelling game, and everyone is failing, and you know, like the even just the idea of like talking like seriously to other people scares the living shit out of a lot of people. And that's the hard part. Is it's easier said than done for a lot of these situations. Like for me, it's never been an issue, but I'm inherently a more extroverted individual, and I was born without a lot of like social inhibitions, so I can just talk about things honestly and be very vulnerable and honest with people and not worry about what they're going to think or say or do, because I don't have that fear in me. I'm just wasn't made that way. But there's a lot of people out there who just have such extreme social anxiety that they feel like if the game can do it, they would much prefer that than having to do it themselves in person. So it becomes kind of like a crutch or like an easy way out. Like, I don't have to fix my players. The game will do it for me. And, you know, it's just one of the hard parts when it comes to tabletop is it's a hobby that draws a lot of people who are just really bad at social skills. And
yeah,
and it's just going to happen.
It definitely is. And it's something that's not lost on me that like, it is the hard decision. There's a lot of situations where it's like, I can understand why it's taking you this long to do this. Because like sometimes the talk is kicking someone out of your game, or like cutting off like a friend that's like, oh man, I hung out with them a little bit, they seem cool, and now like hanging out with them a lot more, oh, they kind of suck and are awful. There's a lot of hard decisions that get baked into it. It is the part that annoys me is largely on the face of it's the people that are like leading these discussions that I'm not a fan of. I think it's a better thing if more people, more public figures, and more like YouTubers, whatever content they're doing, if things are coming up, having that honest bit of, hey, talk to people. Like I've seen the fixes of like a tabletop advice. Here's how you do this. Here's how you get your players to do this. And it's always in-game consequences and in-game things, and talking about it only from an in-game perspective. And it's like I love tabletop and the immersive aspect that it can be, but I also think when people are talking about it, they have that tendency to act like they're still in game and not look at like the social picture that is going on, and just learn how to look at someone's behavior and learn how to just every once in a while just look at it and be like, hey, this is what's going on, we should chat. I think it's very important. The minor ones I think are easier to say than like, hey, we need to talk, your toxic behavior, you're out of our friend group. I think that's a lot harder and tougher, even if you're like very good at social social stuff, because I've had to deal with that. It sucked and it's really hard, but like it's important. It'll make everything better. I just one point in the internet, I want when the average person to see the solution of like out of game chats to be more prevalent than what we currently have, which is like, let's do all these in-game punishments and solve nothing. It just annoys me to no end.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's definitely a more correct answer, and definitely when I was talking about people just being so afraid of social stuff, it's not to say that they shouldn't try or that trying is the wrong thing.
It's that the natural
just,
inclination is different.
It's more just like people should work out, you know? You should go for a jog for 10 minutes every day. Are you going to? Probably not. Because it's just more effort than you think necessary. And that's just the same thing in this scenario where people feel like it's a lot more effort to try to do that kind of stuff. So what you're saying is correct. Talking to people is really good. Though, I've talked with my GM before about things, and it still didn't work sometimes. It's just how it happens. You know, I was in a game, and my character didn't jive with something the party did, and my guy was going to walk off. And I was like, this is narratively what my character would do in this situation. I'm not trying to be absurd here, but he just can't tolerate it. And I talked to the GM. I'm like, hey, you know, if you want, this guy can just leave and I'll just make a new character. You know, I'm happy with that. That's fine. And he was like, no, we'll make it work. And then it didn't work. And then I was like, all right, so I understand. I'm an experienced player. My character's going to go off. He's going to see that we're not where he thought they were, and the situation has changed. And now he's going to have his arc where he comes back and he apologizes and all that kind of stuff. And GM's like, nah, you should just swap the character now. And it's just like, what? You wanted me to play this character, you convinced me to play this character, and now you don't want me to play this character now because it didn't go the way you thought it would go.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, like, I had the easy solution before, but you know, like, not everyone is comfortable with the same kind of narrative and the same kind of moments. And I inferred from what I've heard from other games that the GM was running that this was not a new type of scenario. So I thought everything was fine. Apparently it wasn't, but you know, that's just how sticky it can be. Even talking to your GM sometimes cannot work, and sometimes it doesn't always go through, because even when you talk to people, their ability to comprehend and work with you and compromise and everything can vary and can not work. Like I said, I've run games at Adventures League where I've talked to my players, because I always do, because I'm just, you know, a good GM and someone who has good social skills. And they don't understand. They don't get what's going on. Had a young boy who was playing a warlock, and his whole, we played like a whole Eberron game where he was spending downtime to like date people.
Yeah.
And I was fine with it. I'm like, that's super cool. But it seems very obvious that he wanted to date someone like another player at the table, essentially, and wasn't happy with how it came out, despite the fact that he had like a whole women's arm wrestling team like willing to help him out later, which was
I'll say fun. You handled those scenes a lot better, because I mean, you also know that I am of the perspective of table romance. If other players are doing it, that's fine. I feel like if that happened in our game with our friend group, I'd be like, okay, that's totally fine. A stranger, and especially what is definitely tabletop wish fulfillment, I'm like, this is so fucking uncomfortable. You made it more fun than it could have been. And like, this is a skill I definitely picked up from the experiences at your table, where I'm like, yeah, the answer is talk, because that always happens. And it's the same reason of like, it appeals to me, because I'm in the aspect of I do not take criticism, I guess, personally. That's because I come from an art background, and if you're doing that, you're gonna have your shit completely ripped apart, even if it's like a very personal project that is like, this is my expression to the world, this is me, and then it gets ripped apart by people. Like, that's a very normal experience for me. So I never take it personally. The only thing I take personally is if I'm doing something and I'm not told, and then it's treated like I should have figured it out. I'm like, I probably could have if you told me. Which is why my favorite perspective of handling a thing is like, I want to do this thing, or doing this, and it turns into a discussion. It's like, okay, Alex, this is what you're asking me to do, like, or this is like, let's break it down. This is what's going on. I'm like, okay, I immediately understand that, because it's a lot easier for me in that aspect. It's the example I think was honestly, I keep thinking of it very fondly. I think it's one of our most fun table talk discussions, is talking about like the Fireball, the Alchemist Lab example.
Yeah.
I think it's such a really good discussion. And because there's so many other elements of tabletop that you can like approach in that perspective and like figure out a solution that works for everybody. And like how you would play that scenario, I think tells a lot as like your skills of a GM. Because there's a lot of good moves, and there's like a couple bad moves, but there's a lot of good moves you can do. It's always that perspective of like, you're asking me for the insta-kill. I can't give you that because mechanically, this reason, like, understandably, I can't give you the insta-kill. What you want is this thing, and I understand that. Let's find a fun way to do that. It is, I think, an important skill to learn. Man, I wish more people at least just saw that instead of the, you know what you should do? Like, you throw the fireball on the alchemist table and it explodes at you. Consequences, that is the bad answer. That's really dumb.
Yeah. It's really funny because what's your favorite medieval light TTRPG and why does it work for you? Not quite what we're discussing, Buttermilk, but maybe we'll come back to that question.
I don't even know if I have an answer for that.
Well, medieval light, I'm assuming the question is like, okay, it's kind of medieval, but like not really. Like D&D is kind of a medieval light, because it's like medieval, only without as much poverty and suffering.
Probably Pathfinder then, because I like the rules, but
we don't play a lot of medieval games, to be fair. In fact,
yeah, not really.
I think there's only the two, D&D and Pathfinder. I think they're the only ones we really play. We played a little bit of Daggerheart, I suppose.
Unless you calculate Anima as medieval light.
So Anima is technically medieval light.
It depends where you are in Anima, to be fair. Like, what area and region are you in? But
fantasy-esque. So are you saying kind of like low fantasy? Because I don't think we play any low fantasy either.
That one, I know of low fantasy games, and there's like a couple that I think look cool, but I've not played any of them.
Yeah. But going back to our topic, the hard part about tabletop in general is it's a lot more skill-based than people think. And to get the optimal experience, it requires certain levels of experience. That's just how it is, you know. It's a game that requires a certain level of finesse in storytelling and a certain amount of buy-in. That if you want to have your peak experience, you aren't going to have that your first time. You can have fun. Don't get me wrong. You can have a lot of fun, but there's a difference between having a lot of. It's like the Adventure Zone. Like they're having a lot of fun in the beginning, but they got to much better peak experiences after running for a while and
like
getting into it.
There's an actual switch in the Adventure Zone when you can like notice that storytelling improvement. Because like I look back on a lot of those arcs and like those are fun. My favorite is the train mystery arc because it's really funny, and like super well done comedically. And then you get to like the crystalline like structure where bro literally made like a Vocaloid music track motif for it, and you're like, okay, yep, there we go. Now it's increased and like the wider plot starts getting introduced and it's really interesting. There's always that switch, and it's the important switch you gotta have because you can have something great comedically, but a lot of times it doesn't carry that weight behind it.
Yeah, and like talking about bad advice, I hate, it's not advice, but it's similar. I hate game critiques of like certain games and settings that are viewed through the lens of, okay, what if I tried to break this? Why is it bad that way? I recently watched a Daggerheart video talking about why they didn't like Daggerheart, and they had a lot of other reasons, but one of them was, I don't like how its combat initiative system works, because what if one player just takes all the turns? And it's like, first of all, did your table have that? Was that a problem? He's like, I like to spotlight myself in a lot of scenes, and I like to talk more than the people around me. But he didn't say that's what he did. He just says that he's the kind of person who would, but he didn't do it. Which makes me think that they knew better and they played it correctly. But the idea of it upsets him because he can view it as being something that can be broken easily. And thus, it's bad. And it's like, I don't think you properly understand why the game has designed it in the way it does. He also said that it's not a narrative first game, which is super silly. But the thing was, there's like, I hate this mechanic, or I don't like this thing in this game because of what the players break it, is such a bad critique of a game. Because if you have a player who's just inherently abusing a system, or is inherently like selfishly playing in the game, it doesn't matter what game you're going to play, it's not going to be fun. In fact, if it's not combat, they could do that anyway. So do you just not play non-combat TTRPGs? That's not the case. There's an inherent understanding that everyone gets a chance to talk at the table. And if need be, the GM can always step in and make sure everyone gets a proper time in the sun kind of situation.
Yeah, that's something that I always made point to do. Like, it was my goal in every single game I ran was every single player will get a moment that is like their moment, their cool thing they did that session, so they get to walk away happy. Like, I always made extra effort for that. Especially like if you play it, like I had a bigger group when I was doing this in college, and some of them were more quiet than others. So it was an important thing of like, let's make sure everyone is like feeling like they can fully participate. Because sometimes you have those days where you're just kind of like harder to think and active go at it, but I still want everyone to have fun. You know, that's actually super similar to another thing that annoyed me so much that I was ranting about it in our personal Discord, and how I could never be you and do what you do, Cam.
Yeah.
Because I'd crash out constantly. Because I made a video recently, Vampire the Masquerade, and it's like very interesting humanity mechanics. Because I think 5th edition Vampire's humanity mechanics are the most interesting iteration of it. But there's some other like cool elements that were at play in older editions and have been since been like patched in. A big one I talked about early on, in like Revised and 20th were like the ones where there was really a thing, is in Vampire you have the Paths of Enlightenment. Where the Paths of Enlightenment essentially are alternate forms of humanity, gain and loss, to where vampires as a creature are like changing their morality and like how they view things. Normal humanity is like if you murder someone in cold blood, you're gonna have an issue with your humanity score. It's gonna start getting stained and you'll start losing it, and you don't want to go to 0. That's essentially character death. Um, and so you then have all these alternate paths. Like one of them is the path of the beast, where you're like, well, you're a hunter, you're a predator. Therefore, you should embrace that bestial nature of you. And it's learning how to like gain that element of enlightenment in alternate methods. Ranging from like you are trying to be redeemed religiously, like spiritually, because God laid out a path of redemption for vampires when he turned Cain. But also, there's some that are like, well, we're already monsters, so let's just make this world hell and be murderers. And when I was reading this, my first thought was, this sounds mechanically problematic, because like you're having all this element. I was like, this feels like it's permission to murder hobo. And then I read the opinion of the designers, who were then like, in retrospect, all this really did for players was give them permission to murder hobo. And I'm like, okay, cool, I'm not far off. So it's been changed. But it is that element of like, you can have a mechanic that I think is problematic in the way that that person might be intending. That reviewer of Daggerheart. Like I can see a world where this is a problem, but I think the more important thing in the difference in examples here is that one of them you can look at and like, how is this thing actually utilized in practice? It's like, this is a very optional rule. It's very roleplay heavy. The game itself says, hey, do not do the passive enlightenment unless your table is good with it, your GM's good with it, and you're ready to go whole hog. This isn't something that you go super hard. It's essentially paladin oaths, like times 10. It's way deeper than that. But also, you can look at the older system and be like, wow, so you can play this thing and mechanically erase the punishments for like being a vampire and like not role playing as good and approaching the story poorly, because that's what it was mechanically. Like I think there's a difference there. Sometimes that is a legitimate thing you have to do as game design. In game critique, I think it's misused a lot, and admittedly, I've misused it a handful of times too. But yeah, it's not a great thing to be like, yeah, this rule worked fine in practice when we were playing it, but hypothetically, if I was a worse person, I could misuse this so hard.
I mean, I think there's a difference between a mechanic that rewards a player for bad behavior and a mechanic that is only problematic when a player performs, badly.
I also think the Daggerheart, that one of like, I think I had a similar thought of like, what happens if one person just claims it all the time? And I'm like, that probably wouldn't happen though, because like, I think that's a little unrealistic to how it would be in practice.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, the intent is, if you want a combat that has more free flow to it, that allows players to combo up if they've got a real good flow in the moment going, or to spread it out the narrative evenly between the players, like, in order to have something flexible like that, you need to have a system that has a little bit more wiggle room than like a standard initiative. And I feel like what Daggerheart is trying to do, and it's not necessarily that I like Daggerheart's initiative system. I think it has its own issues in some other ways. But the point of the system is it's supposed to be flexible to allow for the narrative to breathe in a combat scenario. Because what happens a lot of the time is combat starts and the player sees their name at the bottom of the initiative tracker and they hop on Facebook or Twitter or whatever and they start just zoning out and not paying attention. And they're just waiting for their turn. They're half paying attention, half listening, catching every now and then. In Daggerheart, you don't have that luxury, because if you want to participate, you have to be ready to jump in at a moment's notice. So it tries to solve that issue in a very interesting way, which I like. What I don't like is especially with how enemies act in initiative, because the GM needs to essentially spend fear in order for the enemies to act, and they can do it like at any time. This has a combat that puts a lot more mental load on the GM than I feel like it earns in player attention and flexibility.
Yeah. I think a form of that initiative system I prefer. I really enjoy how Lancer does it. I like that form of, it is structured yet freeform. to where we can discuss. And like there's a lot of moments where in our combats where like we were like, oh yeah, I don't have anything, so like don't worry, I'll kind of end the combat, or like I'll be at the like lower end of the round, or like no, you go first, like wanting to take turns and be fair. But there's a lot of moments where you have like, oh shit, okay, hey guys, I need to go first and I can set this thing up for you, and then another person's like, oh shit, okay, if I go after you I can get this. Like it allows you to do combo potential while also like I think the structure of it appeals and makes it easier in the framework for players to like start jumping into it.
Yeah. It also has the, you know, we go, you go, we go, you go kind of style, which in the end means that the GM can reactively play against the players in a real organic way, where the players do a thing and the GM can react appropriately, rather than, oh, this guy's getting dogpiled over here. Oh, well, he's not that high on the initiative, so I guess he's just going to suffer for the next so many attacks, you know?
I think it builds a higher tactical thing too, because like you have that issue where in like the Pathfinder, like a normal rigid, you rolled for initiative. Right? Yeah. Like, hey guys, this person at the lower end of the initiative, we don't need to worry about right now. Like that just builds its thing, and then you have like the high initiative enemy. It's like, well, we should probably take him out quickly. And then now it turns into any one of these enemies can be a threat, because if I do this, then this enemy can do this. Like because the GM can just select that. It adds extra tactical consideration to like what you're doing.
Yeah, and this is a problem I was trying to kind of synthesize with the 333, where any action can be reacted by essentially anyone on the battlefield, but you only get so many reactions essentially, and you can only react at a certain time marker once. So I feel like if I tweak it a little bit more, it'll be a really good system of like, it'll feel like a really good back and forth. I just need to better create a system where it doesn't feel like every action you do, we need to go through like 15 resolutions before we get to the player who's actually acting to get done. But it's that kind of idea of reactiveness. And so I generally feel like in a lot of games in general, you have to try to play the game that you're there to play. So Daggerheart is requiring you to not be an asshole, and I feel like that's a very small ask. So, you know, like if you feel like you can't, if you feel like you have so little self-control that you can't even be aware of the other people at the table and you're just going to try to take 15 turns in a row, I don't think you should be playing tabletop at all. It feels like in a cooperative setting, you're too selfish to play tabletop.
I think you should go play like Divinity or something. Go play a TRPG, because that sounds like it's what you want.
Yeah,
if that's how you play it.
To be fair, I think even when we played Daggerheart, I skipped some people sometimes because it just got lost in the sauce. And that's a super fair critique of Daggerheart in those kind of games. But I don't think the standard turn-based stand around and wait for your turn kind of initiative, I don't think that is honestly like the perfect system. I feel like the tabletop needs to develop something that works better.
Yeah, it's that element of like, it's the tough thing, because some of the best forms of initiative system I've seen that really play with this are like video gamey and like only work because you're a human playing against robots. Like I like the little modification that Baldur's Gate 3 does, where it's like, all right, all these enemies roll the same initiative, or like the players all have the same initiative, therefore they can go at the same time. It's like, all right, cool, sweet. I think that's a good way of doing it. The problem is that's not really feasible in like a tabletop at a table setting. Yeah. Unless the GM can split their hearing twice, like listen to everyone. That's not great.
Yeah.
It's that eternal challenge of like, how do we handle this, and how can we make an initiative system that works for the game? Like, I because I prefer the like let's do a structured initiative system. I like Lancers a lot, but I'm like, man, I also am totally into just like you roll your initiative and like that's the turn order. Uh, I like how it works in Anima because I think it's a lot more selective if you want to build initiative, and I think it's a fun decision to make in your game of like, all right, do I build my initiative to be good?
Yeah. Let's talk about some other bad player advice or
Yeah,
bad tabletop advice in general, not just player advice. Uh, it's so hard because one, I just don't watch a lot of like how to be a GM slash player videos unless they talk about a subject that I think is interesting. But a lot of the time, I feel like tabletop advice is one, it's difficult because a lot of people don't understand the nuance, and the real answers to a lot of these things is more boring and not good video quality kind of stuff. Like
yeah,
D&D horror stories only exist because people refuse to do the basic thing of talking to each other, like rational people.
yeah. I have seen like one creator, maybe two, who has ever done the thing where they're like, when they do like that bit of, all right, let's chat about what we just read. And like, I think there's two. I know one of them's Crit Crab, because I think he's actually approaches it decently. Uh, where he's in like, I think at this point, this is like, this is where you step in and need to like take this out of game. And like, there's another creator that does this too, but it's the only time I've like really experienced that instead of wow, that's crazy. What a crazy situation. It's so solvable, please. It's just it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because it makes better videos to just like, right, let's chat only about this and then like talk about the solution there. And it's always funny how many times in the like D&D horror story or like tabletop am I the asshole, the answer at the end is to kick the player out or to
Yeah.
like do something out of game. It's crazy how that's the one that works. And afterwards, they're always like, and then our games became really good.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But like the types of tabletop, there's a lot of stuff like I have to be honest, right? I've been doing this a really long time. It's my life passion. And so I'm very opinionated, and there's a lot of times I'll be watching a video and I won't necessarily agree with what the person is talking about when it comes to like a thing in a game. The Daggerheart review I talked about before, I didn't agree with half the things the guy was talking about. But when it comes to tabletop advice, I can imagine a type of advice that is given quite a lot is bring up everything at a session 0. It's good to bring up as much as you can, but I don't think there's so much can happen during the course of a tabletop game that there's a lot of scenarios that can't necessarily be foresight seen is going to happen. You might have an issue with the thing, but you're like, that's so unlikely. That's never going to happen. And I feel like putting pressure on a GM to try to talk about everything, to have like a checklist of all of the things. Like, if your GM wants to put out a checklist for players to go through, that's fine. But to make that an expectation of all GMs out there, I think is just generally bad advice. Because one, most of the time you're playing with people you know already and should generally understand what they like and dislike. And I don't feel like that's necessary. But two, if you are planning things to be to bring up problematic storytelling elements, which problematic is such a bad way of putting it, because I don't think it's problematic to bring up harsh topics in narratives. It's just whether people are sensitive to that or not is the point. But if you're planning on doing something that's more controversial, that's a good thing to bring up. But
it is it's an element where like the session 0 being a checklist of like things is not always the great way to do it. Like That's why one thing a move I like is the Google form way of just, and also like some people it has that element. I think we're not in this group that would do that, but some people have that social thing of I don't want to hurt someone's feelings, but if I can say it anonymously, it's like easier to do. Because I think that way of like, hey guys, how comfortable are you with this stuff? This stuff. Is there any no's? Because like, hey, the one I'll always do is like, if I can fully avoid it, I don't want table romance. I don't want this to be a thing I do because I find it deeply uncomfortable. Um, to the point where it hits how much fun I'd have in a session. So it's like, cool, sweet, and like my friends already know that's a like full stop. I don't want to do this. Um, so it's fine. But like in that element, I enjoy it. But I do agree, every single problem isn't going to come up at a session 0. I think there's the key hits you should do. The big one I'll always say is I think it's important to ask, what level of character death do you want at this table? And like run people through that. I think that one's always super important, just to always make sure the expectations going in are going to match what happens. That's the strength of it. If it is running through, hey guys, I have a giant checklist running through, or like we need to hit all these problems. Not every answer is like you should have done this at session 0. A session 0 is very important, but it's not the end all be all.
Yeah, and I'm more obviously talking about the expectation that every GM comes and has a big checklist or something that a lot of people seem to think like, oh, this is what you do. It's like, or you can just trust your friends to not touch their hot buttons, you know?
If you've played with like the same group of people for like years and years and years, at some point it's going to start falling away. The only time is if it's like a new group or has new people in it. I think it's important to reestablish. But like, yeah, I don't need to reinforce my own tabletop boundaries because you know it. We've been playing like this for a long time.
But I mean, even if it's like a new group kind of thing, like session 0s are good. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that I feel like there's some level of general social etiquette that just is pretty common sense. And if you run into a scenario that a player finds uncomfortable, then just have a conversation, you know? Like a lot of the session 0 checklist stuff is supposed to be preventative, right? Preventing someone from feeling bad at all. But my point was you can't necessarily account for everything like that, you know? You might hit a hot button that someone didn't even know was a hot button. And that checklist won't prevent that necessarily. So you gotta be able to cope, and so, you know, be comfortable talking to each other, obviously, is the advice we gave earlier. But I just feel like there's so much effort people go into running games in general, to then have that same person come up with a checklist is just a lot. If you have things you don't want to have in a tabletop, go to your GM and tell them, you know, don't make them do all the effort. Don't make them suss out what your hot buttons are or not. Tell them your sensitivities, and that's good.
It's also important in the avenue of like telling someone, especially someone you might not know as well. Be like, hey, these are a lot of my things. This is what I like can't handle in a story, like don't want to handle in a story. Is this okay? To also suss out if the GM is like, hey, just so you know, like everyone else is like completely into this, like into these type of subjects, and like having a much darker, full-on game where we touch on a lot of things. It hopefully in a good way. I certainly hope in a way that's not shitty.
Well, like they want to tell like a grimdark story, for instance.
You want to tell something grimdark, and then like you're like, hey, so this might just not work because like everyone else is going for this. You're the only exception, and that's a fine answer. Because in reality, it's just saying, hey, if you join this game, you're going to be really uncomfortable and have a bad time. And I don't want to do that to you as a human being. That is like the right answer. It's also the good reason to have like those safety tools of like make it so the players in a moment can like private message or do a little sign of like, hey, can we just skip past this, is really good. Funnily enough, that's another element that I think gets criticized really shittily of the same thing of, well, what's going to happen when a player tries to meta and power game the safety tools? which is a really stupid and like I guess issue. It's a fake issue, and really dumb. But like that's I've heard people argue it in that way of mechanically it's unbalanced. Like yeah, because people aren't gonna use it like that, man. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's you should be able to tell your friend, hey man, can we maybe fast forward through this thing? It's really fucking weird. Or like I personally can't fuck with it, or like I'll step away for a few minutes. That's totally fine.
Though to be fair, if I'm getting carded every time the story gets even a little heavy, I'm probably gonna tell that player to leave. Like,
Yeah, that's another scenario of like, hey man, I don't think this is gonna work for you. I think
yeah,
like if this game is just going to like make you uncomfortable, if the difference is if it's the the one player or if it's like all five or that you have in the party. At some point, it's like okay, the problem lies here with somebody. Either it's like this isn't the right game for you, or I don't know, maybe the GM's not great. Let's maybe they're not doing it really well. Let's jump out of it. It's a more unrealistic scenario, but like it's an important tool also to help build up the fact of if it keeps consistently happening, I think you should find another table. I'm sorry.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. A lot of these tools, not that I don't think they should exist. It's more of a lot of these tools I think are supposed to be like a safeguard that is supposed to help in case talking doesn't work, I guess. I don't know. A lot of these problems feel like they could just be solved by a private message or
Oh yeah.
or just talking in general about a thing.
They feel like they are a structured thing that exists as like, hey, this is a button you can press basically. That helps you sidestep the social anxiety of it. Because like you said earlier, it's the a lot of times that having the conversation is so terrifying that it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Or like there's all these little things that could build up, and having that for a lot of people having that option of like I have a way to make this thought known that gets around all these anxieties when the actual answer is to talk about it.
Yeah.
I say all this too as someone who has like I deal with a lot of anxiety issues, and like for a large portion of my life I was very socially anxious. It kind of got beat out of me by art school, but like and there I've had a lot of those issues into where like it was harder for me to speak up or say no to things because I was too worried about it. Right now, no, I'm fine. I can definitely deal with it. It's the elements of like the safety tools exist in that aspect, but the real answer is talking. It's always the real answer.
Right, yeah. It's just, like even with your friends, there can be social friction. That's just how it is. We're all different. We're not all going to fit together, completely cohesively. There are going to be some rubbing points. And none of what I'm saying is disavowing things like safety tools or session zero talks. It's more of the advice of these kind of things makes me feel like, one, the GM has to do all the work, bring a checklist, do all this kind of stuff, and two, removes some of the social etiquette of if a player finds something uncomfortable, they shouldn't make it an immediate issue. They should find a way to get out of it. Now, if it's something that's like very, very serious, it's causing you to have a anxiety attack or something, then sure. But a lot of the time it's never that serious, and it's something that could definitely be met with a bit more grace and just be like, hey, can we avoid this in the future? And It's like, cool, I got this. I remember I was running a game and I was role-playing aristocratic asshole vampires, and they were using essentially like a slur, but like the point was they were assholes, and you're not supposed to like them. They're doing something that is not good. That's the whole point. But one of the party members didn't like it, so we found a way and we got around it. It works out that way. It's just, again, that was something solved by just the player brought it up, and we talked about it for like a minute, and I was like, okay, cool. And we found an answer around it. It's just how it is. you know.
Because like in that scenario too, it's really easy to be like, okay, I can get the same message across in a different way then. Like it's not crazy hard. The only time it would be an issue is if is having the a weird double down from somebody, but like that's not how that was handled or how really you
Right.
handled those problems like at all. Because like yeah, that's how you solve it. It's like this is my intent. This is my intent of like saying this. Boom, boom, boom. We can solve this problem. Uh, like easy money.
Right,
It
right.
actually it also builds in like one of the ways I think I like the approach of this the most. It's the way I've like I'm gonna steal that. I really enjoy how Vale specifically does like the Google form before games. Not even just like because there's the stock standard, hey, safety tool options. For us, very easy because we've like played games with each other so much. We all know the answers to that. The part I enjoy a lot are the questions that are based more around what the game upcoming can be. What level of like this do you want? What level of that do you want? What are we in the mood for? Uh, and like basically compiling a bunch of like different thoughts behind it that can I think bring some really fun campaign choices to where like okay sweet I have this general concept for a game and then hearing the opinions of my friends it helped me workshop in my mind something more cohesive to do. I think that's a good strength of it, like a really fun essentially that's like a session zero. It's just
Yeah,
done
it
in
is essentially.
individual because that's I think the strength of a session zero when you're handling it like that. It's building this is to ensure that when you get to session one, it's the type of game everyone is going to have the most fun with, and that's the power behind it. And I really like that.
Yeah. Funny enough, we're doing a very unique kind of session zero now with Anima, where
We're
rather
doing
than
one
a
shot.
session zero, we're having a bunch of one shots leading up to the actual campaign.
Yeah, it's fun.
Uh,
It's fleshing out the world. It's building. Because I think it's gonna be fun now to think about. All right, where's my boy, good old Benjamin? Like, where is he at during the horrific event that occurred in the first one shot we did? Like, because are we playing in that same city?
Maybe that's your
Oh, fair enough.
that the Wild March is happening everywhere. Ironfinger just
Ah,
got the
fair,
worst of it.
fair. Uh, yeah, because I think it'd be a fun answer of like we're seeing these openings. Granted, I think it's gonna be a fun little twist for my character because I am already thinking of taking the wealthy one
Hmm.
because I think it'll also paint a really interesting picture, depending on what the party picks, to be like, hey, yeah, I didn't have to deal with it because like I'm rich and I live in like a manor, like a tiny manor. I am gonna buy one. I want to buy a manor, not like a full on crazy house, but I want to have like something like that, to where he's like, yeah, I was in like the protected class, so I was fine. And then him having to deal with like everyone being like, here's my traumatic story of this, and he's like, it's harder for me to relate to. Or like I feel like kind of like a dick because I can just say, oh yeah, I kind of slept through it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, right? Is I want to provide context because we're not playing in Anima's default, which is a very like medieval esque kind of setting. You don't really need to know a lot about the setting to make a character in that kind of way. I'm telling a very different kind of story in a much more unique kind of world, and so I felt some session zeros that led up to the campaign, or session zeros, some one shots leading up to the campaign. One will provide a lot of context so everyone knows, generally speaking, like what's going on. And two, I want to allow you guys to refine your character ideas,
Yes.
and because I want it to be a good game, and I'm taking approaches to also I've had some epiphanies in tabletop, and I'm working that in, and there's also just some stuff I'm changing with Anima at default that we're gonna go into. The next game is gonna be a lot more like battle based. We're just gonna be doing lots of combat, because I'm gonna show you guys how awful it is outside the walls, and I want you guys to feel it. So
And I think it's fun to build the context of it because that was a big thing for considering what my character would finally like come out to be was what level of like what tech era are we in, like where's the buck end for a tech, because it was going to imply a big aspect because I was going to always have astrophysics and like other dimensional like science and mysticism that's going to play a part in this character. The big question was then is my character a part of this academia, or is he a trailblazer in this? Like, is he a person at the head of like scientific development, or is he treading ground that already exists and finding new avenues to like express it? Which then immediately is like, okay, yeah, we have basic like we're up to almost like the 90s. We have all this extra shit, but we don't have like smartphones and the internet.
Yeah.
Like that's an immediate with that context game. It's like cool. I can make all these decisions now a lot easier.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a piece of advice that I see thrown around all the time that I feel like lacks proper context or lacks a general understanding of like when people are deciding to play tabletop, there's one or two things that happens. Either one, you convince your friends to play. That's like the most common. Or two, you are so interested in playing that you're willing to play with strangers, and thus, either you go to a social group thing or you go online and find people playing in your area and doing all that kind of stuff. And people who are playing with their friends, a checklist isn't really necessary. You don't have to do that because you probably know your friends well enough. And even if there are some missteps, because there are going to be, you just talk it out. If you're doing something with strangers, I mean, even to that, you just need to know that you need to come to them with your sensitivities rather than expecting them to have a checklist that has your particular sensitivities on it,
Yeah. It is just the element of like a relationship. It's not something that's 100% comfy, happy, like fun the whole time. There are moments of like you have to be a little uncomfortable sometimes. It's an important skill to learn how to like have that freedom, like feel uncomfortable and to express discomfort, because otherwise things get worse. It's real bad if you just don't talk and don't like say, hey, this was an issue, this is an issue, because then like if they're truly your friend or truly someone you care about, then the intent is never to harm. Therefore, the idea that you could be accidentally harming somebody is something you, as someone who cares about them, be like, oh shit, I'm sorry. That was not my intention. Let's chat about this. It's an important tool, an important thing for relationships, like on any regard. So it's why, like, at a table you are friends with, I think it's very important. It's important to learn that skill and to tread that ground, because like your friends are going to appreciate it. Well, it might be uncomfortable in the moment, but in the long run, it's going to be better for everybody.
Yeah. Also, tolerance is a two-way street. You need to have tolerance as much as your GM needs to have tolerance, or vice versa. So, if something rubs you the wrong way, don't make a big scene of it. Handle it in a proper adult way.
Yeah, blowing up at the table is like, that's an immediate like, it's starting at a weird spot, because like I always have the impression of like, if it's your friend and if it is your friend, you should approach it with good faith, because like your friend, you're friends with them for a reason. It's unlikely that they're doing something to really hurt you, or something you really think is bad. Like, it's fine, just be like, hey, I don't know if you realize, or like blah blah blah, like this. Just have it like a quiet little thing. It is important to do that. The time you take it much higher than that is if things get worse. And like the background, if it's being fully brushed off or like insulted in the background, like that's a moment where you're like, all right, let me increase this a little bit. Let me chat with the other players and stuff.
Yeah.
There's degrees of like what you should respond with and be proportional. Because many times it's having the tool of just a quiet message or a quiet little like mention on a break, be like, hey, can I chat with you for a sec? I think that's very important.
And it's like Alex was saying earlier as well, sometimes the whole table wants to tell a story that you just don't want to be a part of, and that's okay. That's not against you. Other people's enjoyment isn't any affront to you, and vice versa. If there's one person at the table, it's not because you hate them. It's just, some stories are just like, I'm not personally a fan of general censorship. A story should be as harsh as you want to tell. But that's the point. As harsh as you want to tell, I'm never going to advocate for players participating in and enjoying in like proper torture in my games. But there's other dark elements that can occur, like innocents dying, animals dying, all that kind of stuff. And we should all, everyone should just be an adult and be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm good on this one. It sucks when you don't get to play the kind of game you want with your friends because they want to tell a different kind of story. But tabletop takes so much time and has so much investment that if you're never going to tell those stories, that's kind of a shame. If you want to tell those stories and you never can, because one person doesn't like it, that's just kind of bad. So
yeah, it is it's just, I think, an important element to actually everything. This is a complaint I have with a lot of people, especially online, is just I think it is a powerful element of critique and media analysis to be able to look at a thing and be like, this is not for me, I am not the audience here.
Yeah,
like, I think it's super important because there's a lot of stuff I can point at and be like, I'm not the audience, that's something that's not for me, like, I know it's not for me, so like, what's the point of paying attention to it? Literally, the only example I can think of is like Hazbin Hotel, that whole universe of shows. I look at it and I'm like, this is not for me. Like, I know there's nothing here that appeals to me. Therefore, I'm just not going to pay attention to it. Because I think it's worse if you are look at something like, this isn't for me, I'm going to make it everyone else's problem. I think you're fucking annoying.
Yeah.
It's annoying behavior to do that. In the way that, like, there's tabletop games that are not there for me. If I had, like, if I was just playing a build and there's, like, no role play or anything, it's just tabletop combat, like, I don't know, I could play a CRPG, man. Like, I can do something different. That doesn't sound fun. Or, like, we're playing a really nitty-gritty game, like, super immersive, gritty. Also, we're having, like, all this element. Essentially, a long wind-up to say, hey, Alex, play a character that's, like, in-game fantasy racist or sexist or whatever. Where I'm like, I'm uncomfortable with role-playing that. Because it's an element of, like, as a storyteller, I understand there's moments where it can be used and utilized. As a person, as me, I find that deeply uncomfortable. And I don't like that form of roleplay on my end. So I wouldn't do it. And I'd be like, I'm good. Anyways, have fun, gal.
Yeah.
It's just things that aren't going to appeal to me and aren't going to, like, hit right, and it's never an insult. If anything, it's like, oh, thanks for, like, the consideration to join, but I can't do this, sorry.
Yeah. And, I think that's kind of just, again, it's one of the harsh truths of tabletop is there's so little time in one's lifetime to play enough tabletop where, like, especially when life happens. I had a baby this year and everything like that. We played, like, 3 different tabletop games, I think, so far. Right? That we played, I think the Heroes game was this year.
I think that was, yeah. No, wait. End of last year, because I know the last session was around last Christmas. Because I had to leave partway through at a Christmas party.
Let's see, there's Cosmere, the 333.
Yes.
And we were actually just finishing up. So it's actually been, I think, we were just finishing up Mutants and Masterminds. So yeah, we only played like 2 different games essentially, or 3 with Anima this year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it happens. Like, sometimes we have a limited amount of time on this world to play our tabletop games. Don't waste your time in a bad one, or like a one that you don't enjoy. Because, like, if you're in a long game, I mean, I had to make that choice. I had to make that choice with, like, a very long-running game I was in since, like, 2020, and I left in 2024. And I was like, yeah, this schedule-wise isn't working for me anymore. I can't do this level of investment. Like, I need to leave the game. And, like, that's a decision you have to make sometimes. It is important to do. I imagine in the future I'll have a time where I need to temporarily step away from more tabletop. And, like, be like, hey, I love our Tuesday games, but I can't do it right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be a decision that'll have to be made down the line. I prefer it to be temporary for a lot of our games. And if I mean, who knows? Even like in the far future, if we're just like, all right, now we're all in person. Let's just hang out in person. Let's just
Yeah.
like play these games like physically. That'll
I
probably happen
mean,
at some point.
you know, I had a baby this year. We had to stop playing tabletop for like 5 months.
Yeah.
So it's just what it is. You know, that's just life. I don't know. We got 10 minutes. Any other bad tabletop advice? Any fun little bites we can palate cleanse after that last topic, which is a little heavier.
Yeah, I don't. It's the only bit I get. Maybe does it count as bad tabletop advice to confidently criticize something you haven't read? Because that pisses me off. Or just like be like, you got this rule wrong, and that is incorrect. The shit you deal with constantly,
Right?
And I deal with once, and I immediately lose my mind.
I mean, it should be probably something in general, but it's always terrible to be corrected incorrectly. It's especially because like there's so many videos I wish I had time to make. One of them is I feel like tabletop needs a stronger sense of genres, because I understand, yeah, there's like horror tabletop and fantasy tabletop and everything like that, but I feel like we need more of like a systemic genre for like what kind of tabletop you're playing, rather than what are the themes of the game you're playing specifically. Because there is a type of tabletop that I don't prescribe to, which is the dungeon crawl style. The whole point is you're there to dungeon crawl and tell a little story along the side, you know, like a little pinch of story. And it's not necessarily board gamey, because there's some elements that are just, you can only really do in a narrative style, you know, talking about how we talked about before, like how you would disarm a trap, describing how you would do it and all that kind of stuff. But I am just not a big fan of the idea of you're playing just a dungeon crawl. You're not telling any kind of narratives or story. You're not necessarily like trying to build up something for a character. You're there to participate in the dungeon crawling, and that's it.
Yeah, I find that personally boring. Like, the only form of it, because I think adventure book wise, Dungeon of the Mad Mage for D&D is just that. Pretty sure it's just a big dungeon crawl. And one element I'm excited, because that's an adventure, I'm like, that sounds neat. I don't think I'd have fun with that. Is there's a big Baldur's Gate 3 mod project that's porting the entirety of Dungeon of the Mad Mage into Baldur's Gate 3. I'm like, oh, perfect. That sounds really fun.
Yeah.
Like, I'd fuck with that a lot, because it sounds, if I'm going to play a video game, a dungeon crawl is fun. I do like the Etrian Odyssey series. That's literally all it is dungeon crawling, and it's pretty fun. What isn't fun is me going out for a role-playing game and then being like, damn, there's no story here, huh? That part that's lame. It's not as fun for me. So I would say no to that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there's no story. I'm just saying that it's not the purpose of what you're doing is not to tell a story. You're doing a dungeon crawl and telling a story about dungeon crawling.
If the most talking I do at the table is talking to a storekeeper to get cheaper prices on items I need, then I get bored.
And vice versa. I'm also really not into the idea of just telling just a narrative game that sometimes you introduce dice to add randomness. Like it's more like a choose your own adventure kind of deal, and sometimes you have to roll dice to like get through a thing. Like for me, again, it's the blend. I love I love a good 50-50 blend of narrative and game mechanics, where the point is I'm telling a story, but I have enough game mechanics running along in the system where it feels like I'm actually doing a thing, rather than the GM is letting me or not letting me based on the story, you know.
Yeah.
Or I have a character that by all means is mechanically the same as everyone else's. I'm just telling the story with that character differently. Seems boring to me. And that's kind of why I while I enjoyed our time with Monster of the Week, I didn't really vibe with it because at the end of the day, like, what was super funny about Monster of the Week is I wasn't playing a magic caster like archetype, but I felt more like a magic caster than our other magic caster party member.
Yeah. Just had answers for any situation because that was the class. But yeah, like, because I can enjoy it in the aspect of, like, I think Monster of the Week is the most rules light I could get. Where, like, I like games that have stuff behind it, and, like, I'm here to play a game. If we have sessions where we don't really roll, I think it's different. Because I've had games like that where, like, oh, we didn't really roll at all today, and, like, I still had a lot of fun because we're role playing. It's like that's fun there.
Sure.
Totally good. If it was less of a game than Monster of the Week, that would be where I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm not gonna show up and just do like an improv performance for a few hours. I want like a game here. Cause I want something. I want to like play a thing. That's always my limit of I would hate Monster of the Week more if, like, I didn't enjoy our party and the story Vale was telling. But like, I would not go if Vale was like, hey, here's a game. I don't even think Vale would do this, granted. But like, hey, here's a game I found. It's like Monster of the Week, but less rules. I'd be like, what if we did something different though?
Yeah, what if we played Pathfinder? But we just told more of a story.
What if we did this game that has like it's the same genre but with different stuff to it? Can we do that?
Yeah. So yeah, genres, I think, it's just so many people are playing just different games and then arguing about it like they're playing the same game that it makes me want to pull my hair out a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think that's annoying. It's annoying to approach it like, hey, you're playing the game wrong because you're not playing it like my table.
Yeah, or you get content creators who, like Bob World Builder, who definitely has a very strong preference for narrative heavy, rules like kind of games. And then he gives his opinions on lines about games like Pathfinder and calls it, overly dense, or, implies that Pathfinder has more rules than necessary. And it's just like, you just don't like games that have lots of rules. That doesn't make it bad or overly complicated. If your vision of overly complicated is I have a class and numbers, shut the fuck up.
Because I think there are legitimately games where you could categorize as this is overly complicated. Mutants and Masterminds. But like, there's other moments where it's important, if you're criticizing something, to have an understanding of where the critique comes from. Because like, you can look at a game and be like, this is not for me at the end of the day. I don't like it for such and such reasons. And that's fine. I think it's important to figure out, like, is the thing you're talking about have objective quality to it, or is it just against your taste? Because I understand if you're like, I've had really bad experiences with the games that have a lot of rules, or like, in my experience playing in those tables, it felt overly rigid, like I couldn't do anything. That doesn't mean Pathfinder, for example, is overly complicated or overly rigid. Then at that point, it's a matter of taste, and you've had bad experiences with it more than objective quality. But then I can look at a game where I'm like, I don't think Shadowrun needs to do all this to do what it wants.
Yeah,
I think it's being unnecessarily complicated here. But I also can be like, yeah, but if I had a GM that like helped me just offload a lot of this annoying bullshit, I think I'd like Shadowrun more. Because it currently stands, I don't like Shadowrun.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing. That's why I want more like genre specific terms in the tabletop scene, because then we don't have, like, right now when a tabletop, content creator is talking about the scene, they almost have to include all the tabletops because there's not really strong genre definitions. But that's the same as someone who plays mostly, first-person shooters, commenting on how much they don't like FIFA games. Like,
yeah, the constant bit of there's like this gear is the worst for gaming. It's just like, well, what you actually mean is that like the specific type of game you only play has been dry. It's like, yeah, I mean, gaming's been great if you haven't played nothing but like AAA shooters and like multiplayer experiences. If you're doing other stuff, it's pretty nice. It's just you're viewing it from a very tiny little like framework. But you're expanding it like it's a general full statement. That's where it gets a little iffy.
Yeah, and it's more just like, I understand you like FPSs, so you cannot inherently appreciate the qualities of FIFA, and thus normally you wouldn't have to, because when people come to watch your content, they're coming to watch your content because it's FPS content, and tabletop doesn't have that. So whenever anyone who in tabletop talks about any tabletop, someone's going to bring up some game that's probably relatively unrelated to the type of game they're actually playing. And it's just frustrating because you get a bunch of people who follow big content creators like Mr. X, and then he says Pathfinder is bad because it's not D&D enough, and it's like, that's, what are you saying? What are you even talking about? It's so weird. And to be fair, I would say Pathfinder and D&D are probably in like the same general genre, but still, it's the same kind of absurdity of rules light player does not like heavy games, and so never has a good thing to say about them, despite bringing them up constantly because they have to, because they're talking about tabletop, is just annoying. And I just wish we had stronger genres, and we may in the future, like anything. Video games used to be just called video games, but now we have a whole genre of things that now it's absurd when someone like Shroud says Expedition 33 shouldn't win Game of the Year because it's a single player game and no multiplayer game ever wins Game of the Year. Because it's like,
goofy.
Do you not understand the inherent quality of a video game and the fact that Expedition 33 was a masterpiece? Just because it's not, he wanted to make Ark Raiders Game of the Year, even though it doesn't have nearly any of the same qualities that Expedition 33 had.
Like, the game looks fun and all. Like, I think could be something worth shouting out for like a multiplayer experience thing. I don't think it's the same as like fucking Silk Song or like Expedition 33, Hades 2. Like, I think those are games where it's like a lot more. I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. That I think is one of the better subjects of it. It's like if you tried to argue that, hey, Baldur's Gate 3 shouldn't win Game of the Year when it came out. It's like, no, man, no. This game is like a giant undertaking that worked. That's always the kicker. It's like, this is a huge undertaking, a huge passion project, like artistic expression, and it did what it wanted. Like, perfect. Hell yeah. And it makes a giant splash, but then you're like, well, what if my multiplayer shooter got this? Like, I don't know, man. Like, you played it a lot. That doesn't mean everyone else did.
And to be fair, I think a multiplayer game could win Game of the Year, but it has to have more than just a fun factor quality to it, Like,
if a multiplayer game came out, stuck in everyone's heads really strong, really did some crazy shit, then I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. Because like, if it did the same thing of like, fuck, this is gonna like affect how people talk about the medium, I feel like that's a big element when Game of the Year does it. Like, not even like I take the idea of the Game Awards seriously. I at the end of the day, I don't care which game gets like a Game of the Year.
Yeah.
And I think it is goofier on Shroud to care, because it's like, it's a meaningless little award show.
Well, but I think he was doing it to grab attention. I think
more than likely.
I think he was more than aware of how popular Expedition 33 was, and was doing it for clicks and clips.
I definitely would not be surprised, only because of what I know about Shroud is he is that type of like only shooter, which granted, he's very cracked at those games. Like, he is cracked at it, understandably. And I know that he's in that camp that like doesn't like single player stuff, like can't connect to it. Which I find an interesting perspective gaming wise, because I just can't relate to it. Where it's I mean, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to has people on it that like are mainly multiplayer gamers, and they're talking about like one of the elements that hits them with single player stuff is they're just like they have a struggle because there's no like competition there that is really hard for them to attach to, because it's like I'm kind of, this is a meaningless thing for me, I'm not really playing against anything, and it's an interesting perspective uh when like looking at it. It's like, all right, yeah, fair enough. When it's approached like that, I think it's good. It's when it's approached like everyone feels this way, right? It's like, well, not really. It's good to know that there are other options and perspectives out there. Because I always agree, I always tabletop critique is always such a funny old gambit, because it really is just, can the person separate their preferences and table preference from how like the quality of a game? Because yeah, like someone can shit on Pathfinder 2 all day long if they like legitimately just don't like it. Fair enough, you can make your negative like video on it. If your video is you talking about like some dumb shit, that's where I'm like, hey, listen, I don't know if this is a good video you should have put out. Like, your reasons are pretty bad for, like, your critiques for the game are not critiques of the game. They're essentially floundering to make it more like the game you want everyone to play, or you're being inconsistent with what you want the game to be, like good old Mr. X. That bit where he talks about like liking D&D classes with the freedom and you can do some crazy ideas, and then being given the option to officially do those crazy ideas he says he doesn't like. The barbarian with like medical, I think, is the one that he said.
Yeah, he's like, I don't think a barbarian should be able to heal someone.
And then talks about the fun of doing that in D&D.
And then he's just like, but I want to be a wizard with a sword.
Which is so easy in Pathfinder. I made one. It really rules. It's so cool.
And to be fair, to speak on that subject as well, but we gotta end here.
Yeah, I gotta be gone.
But I can honestly say I can't fully appreciate games like Monster of the Week or a lot of the Powered by the Apocalypse kind of games. I can't appreciate their qualities to the same degree that someone who really likes that kind of genre does. And I do my best to be like, hey, I liked the game, it was fun, but I want something that's more of a blend, and I try my best to consistently say my preference is a 50-50 split, right? But that's just the thing, right? Even if you're trying your best to be as unbiased as possible, I don't think anyone can sync up with proper people who enjoy a particular genre one for one and be able to encompass like all the genres. I liked Monster of the Week. I think we had a lot of fun, but I honestly just don't like games where it feels like I'm just playing the same kind of characters as everyone else, but there's some small narrative differences. Like, I want to make a character that's mine, my own. I put the points in, I got all those stats in, you know. My combination of choices made for a very unique character that mechanically plays differently.
I think it's a different answer to like, this is one of my favorite tabletop games versus this is one of my favorite tabletop campaigns. Because like, you can have a dope campaign in a game that's all right, and you can have a really shit campaign in a game that's really good.
Yeah.
And like, that is a different statement than like Pathfinder is bad. And then reality, I had a bad campaign of Pathfinder with a GM I didn't like. Versus like, I had a great fun in this game because the GM rules and was really good and the entire party was in sync. Those are different opinions.
Yeah. But that's gonna be it for us. Thank y'all so much for watching. We'll be, I think, pretty much on schedule. Let me look. We do, in a few weeks, Christmas does run on a Thursday this time. So, no Table Talk on the 25th. But I feel like we should be good on the 11th or 18th. It depends.
I don't have any holiday plans, so I should be good. It's just on Christmas, I'll be like, nah.
I am trying to go see family because we couldn't for Thanksgiving because my whole household got real sick. but we'll see. There's a lot of things that come up. So check out the Discord, and the Discord will let you know, hopefully, if we're not going to be doing tabletop or whatever. But with that, we're going to go ahead and end it. Alex, anything you want to leave us off with today before we head out?
Yeah, if you like good old tabletop lore content, that's what I do. It's over on Glue Boy. I got a lore video I put out, lore and mechanical video that I ranted about today. That's already out. And I got a video in the works. I'm going back to Trench Crusade. So go sub to that. Go watch. It'll be fun.
As for me, I still have a baby. I say this every week, but I gotta say it's been especially bad. My whole house got sick, like I said before. I've been going to bed at 7 a.m. the last like half a week. It's been really hard. So I don't know when videos are going to continue. I know people have been calling for Cosmere and Lancer videos, and I do want to make videos again. I really, really do. But a baby is just such a full-time job, and if I don't play video games in the scant few hours in a day that I can, I will go insane. So unfortunately, I'm putting my sanity above YouTube for now. Hopefully that changes in the future, but we'll see. But with that, we'll go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.